Hi everyone, my name is Emily Neblock, and if you've seen any of my videos recently, you've seen I've been posting these planet charts. So I've gotten a fair amount of requests from the people in my life saying, can you please explain more about that, what you're doing with that, because we don't understand. So I would be happy to do that. So this is my little helper. He's holding my microphone. Don't have a name for him yet, but he's me. So it's Emily. So this is a planet chart, or it can be known as an ephemeris chart. Ephemeris basically means ephemeral, like as in fleeting, because it's constantly changing. So what you're looking at is essentially what astrology is based on. And people have asked me many times, is it astronomy what you're doing, or is it astrology? Well, my answer is not perfect for that. I would say it's more astronomy than astrology. However, I am not your typical astrologer. Astrology is something that I experiment with, and part of the reason why I do this is to decide what I believe about what meaning there is in these things. But I will tell you this much: I believe that there is meaning. I believe that there cannot be empty, hollow meaninglessness to the fact that we live in exactly the physical structure that we live in, and the fact that we have these amassed bodies that make up the clock of our solar system, drawing circles around us constantly, all day, all year, all of our lives. And the idea that doesn't mean anything or carry in it some sort of thematic content to time cycles. The idea that that's not the case, to me, is a little silly. To each their own, though. So I say that to explain that the type of astrology that I do is not your newspaper Aries will be grumpy today type of astrology. The astrology that I do, at least at this point, more so studies the cycles of the planets, the movements and meetings of the planets, the heavenly bodies, if you will, to understand how these time cycles are affecting our lives. Even the word affecting is not my ideal choice of word, because I believe that we are happening with our world, and it's not so much that the planet's cycles and meetings are affecting us, or that we are affecting them, as much as we are happening together. All of this we will go into more at a later time. So what are we looking at here? So this is the zodiac circle is not a set of arbitrary constellations. The reason that those constellations were picked, as it were, is not random. It's because those constellations are the constellations that the planets move through. So that includes the sun moving through a very specific circle of constellations throughout the course of the year, which, as we know from science, is actually our movement around the sun. But because we're moving around the sun, we see the backdrop of stars behind the sun change. That is, if you could look through the sun, which you can't, don't try, please, you would see a certain constellation at any given time. So that circle of constellations is the same circle of constellations that the sun, the moon, and all of the planets appear to move through over time. And the reason that it's the same is because if you think back to elementary school, the solar system is taught to us as basically like plate shaped. It's disc shaped. It's more or less flat. The orbits of the planets all exist on a plate-like shape. And so that what that means is, as we look out from the planet Earth and look and see the planets against the backdrop of the stars, we're going to see them basically on a single plane. And what that translates to is a 360-degree circle around the planet Earth that planets are moving against. And a planet can never be suddenly somewhere else in the sky other than that single path. And that path in astronomy and astrology is called the ecliptic. So these signs are not arbitrary. They are the signs of the ecliptic. Various different cultures had different ways that they envisioned the different shapes of stars that were the stars that the planets moved through, but we typically, at least in Western society, know them by these names: Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces. The circle is measured into 360 degrees, and each star sign is given a generalization of 30 degrees. 30 times 12 signs is 360 degrees. Now, on my planet chart, just so you know what these lighter lines are, I tried my best to estimate the actual size and scope of each sign so I would know, because the truth is, in the sky, certain of the zodiac signs are bigger than others. Some of them take up more degree space and some of them take up less. So I tried my best to estimate, for example, Cancer being a very small constellation in the actual sky. These lighter lines are to designate more or less the actual physical location and breadth of that sign instead of its normal 30-degree generalized segment. Just so, because a big part of why I do this is to be able to see if I can go outside and find them, find the signs, find the planets, understand where they're living on any given day. So it helps me to know that. But you can also see with the black lines and the tick marks here, the 30-degree generalized segments. And this is what we would call geocentric, which means geo, like geography, means planet Earth. So geocentric means centered around the planet Earth, with us at the center. That's what this is. Looking out to the sky, to the ecliptic, to that exact circle of stars that the planets move through, looking out, geocentric. And the particular method of studying the stars that I practice would be called sidereal, which means by the stars. That's what that word literally means. The implication of that is that conventional modern astrology, it has its greatest roots in a time more or less 2000 or so years ago. I don't have it committed to memory exactly, but it has its roots there. And we can go into that more at a later time. And that astrology at that time was based on the timing of where the sun was sidereally in the constellations at that time in history, 2000 or so years ago. But there is a thing called the precession of the equinoxes. And we, again, can get into that more at a later time. But what it means is that very slowly, over time, the place on the zodiac that the sun is at the spring equinox is changing slowly. And that means that the place that the sun is at any given time of year, on any given day, is changing slowly. So if the sun was in 1 degree of Aries at the spring equinox 2000 or so years ago, now it has precessed to be in a different area as it was then. So conventional astrology is based on accurate information from millennia ago. And that's a whole other topic. I would say they're two completely different things. And over time, like I said, I'm experimental about this. My goal is to experiment with what I believe about it and to see what I do believe. So, but I have decided that my studying of the science of the stars and planets is going to be sidereal, which means that I study where things are exactly against the backdrop of the stars right now. So when we have a little more time later, we can get further into the precession of the equinoxes and what has changed and how far it has changed, but more or less we've advanced about one star sign from that science of 2000 or so years ago. Unfortunately, this sometimes comes as a shock to people because they'll be like, well, I'm a Scorpio, Conventional astrology tells me that I'm a Scorpio, which means, if you don't know about astrology, that when I was born, my sun was in Scorpio, like the backdrop constellation was Scorpio behind the sun. And that's what it means when someone says you are this sign. It means your sun was in this sign. against the conventional astrology chart of the moment of your birth. However, if you look at the sidereal chart, the literal scientific, like exact sidereal chart for my moment of birth, the sun would have been in the constellation Libra. So they tell me it's here, but actually it's here. That's a little confusing. And it makes you wonder, well, who am I? But again, that's a topic for a later video. The point is to say that this is sidereal studying, as in by the stars. So exact to the degree where you would find a planet. If you went outside and looked and you found the constellation Cancer, you would see Mars there against the backdrop of Cancer at this exact degree. So how do I get this information? There are various services out there, but I use an app called iFemeris, as in ephemeris, but iFemeris, and I'm really happy with it so far. I had another source for this information for a long time, and I am not able to get it from that source anymore. So I tried this. You do have to pay for it, but in my opinion, it's worth it. I use it every day. So, and I've been printing out about 1 month at a time of information. You can choose what's on your chart. I've basically included all the major planets, everything that I use to do my charts, and I haven't expanded it much further than that. So I have the sun, the moon node, which, as I explained in one of my videos, is the place where the sun's plane of revolving and the moon's plane of revolving cross, because they are not exactly the same. They're very close, but they're not exactly the same. And so when you have two planes that are slightly different from each other, there are 2 points on the circle where those 2 planes intersect each other. Those are the moon nodes. And the biggest implication of that, among others, is that it is only at those 2 points that eclipses can occur, because otherwise the sun and the moon might be near each other. The moon might be new and therefore near the sun, but it's not going to be exactly in alignment with the sun, which is necessary for an eclipse to occur. So again, we'll come back to that more later. So the sun, the moon node, Mercury, Venus, Mars. We skipped Earth because we're in the center. Remember, this is geocentric. So Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. Just to settle this debate, people have asked me, oh, well, how do you say the name of that planet right there? And I say basically what I heard a scientist say once, which I totally agree with, which is I say Uranus, unless I'm making a joke. And yeah, I make jokes, so that time will come. Okay. So the information from iFemeris tells me the exact degree information for each planet on each day. And then on each day, I make my video for you guys where I actually place my little sculpted model magic planets in the correct degree of where they currently are against the ecliptic zodiac circle on that day. And as the planets move, certain ones move faster through the zodiac than others, certain ones move slower. You can kind of use some common sense and say, well, I would imagine that since Pluto is really far away, it probably moves slower through the zodiac than Mercury, which is the planet closest to the sun that's zipping around over and over. Every time Pluto goes around the sun once, Mercury's probably gone around, like, I don't even know, don't quote me on it, but like hundreds of times. At least hundreds. Okay, we'll get back to that. Math is fun. And we can get more into exact orbit times of the planets and how that plays into the studies at a later time. But if you watch every day, you'll see that the planets closest to the sun are going to be moving the fastest, and they're going to like catch up to other planets and then overtake them, whereas you probably will not see Pluto move very much at all, like even until you die. Sorry to be grim, but it's the truth. Neptune, I think, takes over 100 years. I can't remember off the top of my head. We'll get back to that. Pluto takes like something like 250 years to go around the sun once. So none of us will see their Pluto birthday. Okay, sorry. So you're going to see planets, some moving faster than the others, but all moving. They're all always moving, sometimes fractions of a degree, sometimes more than 1 degree in one day. The sun is an interesting one because we have a circle. The entire circle represents 1 year. So the sun moves through the zodiac circle one time in 1 year. So we have 360 degrees, 365 days. So that means more or less 1 degree every day. And if you watch, you will see the sun moves 1 degree, more or less, every day. The moon moves something like 9 or 10 or 11. The moon makes one revolution around us, and we see it move against the backdrop of the stars once a month. The reason that's the word month is because it says moon in it. So it's 1 month. Get it right. And so what that means is we have, I don't have the exact numbers on hand, but let's just say 30 days. It's not exactly, but let's just say 30 days, 360 degrees divided by 30 days would be 36 divided by 3 is 12. So that's 12, about 12 degrees, more or less, every day. And you will see that if you watch, the moon moves about 12 degrees every day. What does new moon look like? And we will get into all of this more at a later time. New moon essentially means when the moon and the sun are conjunct. Conjunct means in the same degree. So when you see the sun here and the moon is right next to it on the chart, that's a new moon. And I can't wait to give you some tutorials, or I don't know, can you say tutorial on the planets? Information about what is actually happening when the moon is at its different phases, what it looks like in 3 dimensions. A lot of people do not think about this stuff, and it is the joy of my life to study this stuff. So I cannot wait to bring you along with me on that, but we can't do it all today. So when the sun and the moon are together on the chart, new moon, and then as the moon moves through the signs about 12 degrees a day, then when it gets to its first right angle from the sun, that would be the first quarter moon. In other words, half of it is lit up. That always confuses me. And then it continues moving day by day, 12 degrees or so, until it's opposite. Here's the sun, here's the moon. Opposite, that's what opposite means, is on opposite sides of the geocentric chart circle, directly 180 degrees across. When the moon is opposite, that is, full moon cannot occur at any other time other than when the moon is opposite on this chart from the sun. And then so on and so forth, it goes to its last right angle, and that's going to be last quarter. And then it progresses further all the way to meet up with the sun. Now, in the course of that time, the sun will have moved a little bit, but it still comes and meets up with the sun again, and that's its next new moon. So hopefully that makes sense for now. If it hasn't already become clear, I will just point to the different little model magic sculpted planets that I made and explain what they are so that you know what you're looking at. This is the sun, the big orange guy. The moon, this little gray one. This guy up here is the north moon node. So that's, you can see the moon nodes as 1 point or 2 points. And the reason is because if you have 1 point, you can deduce the other one. It's basically always going to be exactly opposite. Plus, also, I had two, and I started using them as earrings for a while because they're on earring backings, and I think I might have lost one. So we might just have to work with the one for now. But that's what this guy is. He's like half a sun, half a moon. And then another interesting story, we have Mercury here, but don't tell anyone about this. But that's actually Pluto. But what happened was, I think I lost Mercury, and I was like, well, I'd rather have Mercury than Pluto. So they look similar, at least in my model magic world. I made Pluto into Mercury, and I made a thumbtack into Pluto. So that's just what we're gonna have to live with for now until I magically find this tiny little sphere in the entire scope of my possessions. So can you lose a planet? I guess you can, especially when you take them for earrings. So this is gonna be Mercury for the time being. Venus, little tan guy or girl. Mars, the red planet. Jupiter, or affectionately known as Jupistar to myself and my beloveds. Saturn, ringed being. Uranus also has rings, but lesser known for the rings. So I put a little ring on there. Neptune, blue, god of the sea. And as I explained, Pluto is currently being played by this thumbtack, which is also convenient because I need a thumbtack in order to place the planets on the chart. So for now, that's what we're going to live with until we find or recreate Pluto. So I feel like that's a good place to leave this for now, because there's plenty of other lessons that I could give and want to, but like I said, it can't all be done at once. So we will come back to further lessons, but I really hope that this was clear enough to get you started on understanding what this is. And the last thing I want to say about it is the point of this is not to be arbitrary. For me, anyway, the whole point of doing this is to orient myself in the 3 dimensions of the solar system. We are so used to thinking of our orientation on the planet Earth. We look out, standing on this planet with its gravity, and we say, there's the horizon, that's up, that's down, that's left, that's right. Actually, I got that backwards. Sorry. But everything that we've learned from science is true. There's a whole nother orientation to our consciousness. And even beyond that, there's more further orientations. But I love the act of expanding my consciousness to include the 3-dimensional existence of the solar system that we are taking part in every single day, whether we like it or not. And like I said at the beginning of this video, I believe that there must be meaning, or at very least like a potency to the realities that these physical bodies are representing, namely their time cycles. So this has been an introduction to my understanding of the solar system and the planets and my particular type of astrology and astronomy. My goal is to help you orient yourself 3-dimensionally in the solar system. So I really hope this has been helpful, and I cannot wait to share more with you. Thank you for watching.